First, I'll start by navigating to the eComm homepage by going to cu.edu/ecom. From there, I'll go ahead and click on the login page. It's on the far right of our top navigation. Here you will find the login page for our 3 separate applications. And of course, right now, we'll want to go ahead and click on Marketing Cloud, the blue button found in the middle. Here you'll input your username. You should have received this information when you were first granted access to the system. While we are using your university email address, it is important to note to include this -MC03 before the @ symbol. I also like to check Remember Me so it saves this username. Then let's select Next. Here you will input your password. You also have the option to recover your password if you've forgotten it. After that, you can go ahead and log in. Upon logging in for the first time, we will want you to verify in the top right corner that you're seeing your name, as well as a relevant business unit next to that name. So a business unit is a Marketing Cloud specific term. And so we have about 150 or so of these across CU. And so the value here is that it kind of locks down this account to just you or others who have access to this account. So you could collaborate while not collaborating with the entirety of CU. It would be really messy for all of us to see what was going on in all 150 business units. And so if either one of those are cause for concern for you, please reach out to your eComm specialist. Before diving into Email Studio, where we will build and send our emails, I will mention this calendar that you see on the overview page. Again, it's locked down to each business unit, so yours will look different than mine, but it will show you emails that you have either scheduled to send in the future or that have already gone out. You also can jump to recently sent emails as well as recently edited emails. Let's go ahead and review how we will create an email within Marketing Cloud. So let's get into Email Studio by hovering Email Studio in the far left of the navigation. And then below that, you'll see Email. Let's go ahead and click on that. You can check out items that have recently been edited and drill into them. You can also look at previous sends and quickly get into analytics. That reviewed this first overview tab, but let's move one to the right to the content tab. I'm going to go ahead and start creating an email based off of templates that are already available to you within Marketing Cloud. To do so, we'll click on this top right Create button, and we'll get a couple of different options. But what we'll want to do is just create an email. Let's click that. Once we have this blue outline and it's checked, we'll really move through this like a wizard, so we can hit Select in the bottom right. So we'll notice in this phase we are creating an email. So those steps entail defining your properties, adding your content, previewing, and testing. So in Define Properties, we'll want to add a name. So this is very internal facing. You will see this, but I encourage you to follow a naming convention so that it's easier to report on this. So I use 08, that indicates the system office. 1 indicates Boulder. 2 indicates Anschutz. 3 indicates Denver. 4 indicates Colorado Springs. And 9 indicates advancement. We'll do 08 underscore and then my department. So again, mine that I'm housed in is university relations. So I just do all capital, 4 letters, UREL, an underscore. I like to add the date that I intend to send this invitation. So I'm going to do today's date, 2018-07/31. Underscore, and then the name of that email. So I will call this a training invitation. You can also add a description, although it's not required. Because I was already selected on this location, it defaulted to put this in that folder. But if yours just reads Content Builder and you want to get it into a particular folder, it's simple enough as hitting select and moving it to a different folder that you can save. And with those 2 pieces done, you should be able to hit next, and that will take you on to the add content phase of creating an email. The first thing I will point out when adding content is that you can control the template that we just selected. So to do so across these top navigation or tabs, we want to select design. So again, this is the template styles that are driving the email you're about to make. So some things we've done to style this is adding this background. That's why this color is gray. If we want to look at the body, so why is the text showing up gray and in Arial at an 18-point font? That's because we've set this up in the template. So if you find yourself that you don't like this font or you want to change it, I would highly encourage you to start doing it at the template level. It's going to save you a little time down the road. Looking at fonts more, you can set what the primary title might look like, the secondary title, that tertiary title that we've used all throughout this for consistency's sake. Links are another big deal. So how do you want those links identified? And would you like them underlined or not? Also looking at buttons. So why are these buttons displaying as gold with black text on it? So those are things we've controlled at the template level. And the last item being mobile styles. So very important to look at, especially if you have a lot of folks reading your email on mobile, which it's safe to assume there probably are. So assuming those design elements on the template are what we want, we can pop back over to just these blocks that allow us to control this particular email. So looking at this email, I'm actually going to simplify it for today's training, which is why I love templates. You can either make them far more complex or you can dial it back a bit, which is what we'll do. So I will want this image block here up at the top. It's brand compliant, looks great. So we'll keep that. For this department, I don't want it. It looks great in a lot of emails. In this particular one, it's not something I want. So when I go ahead and click into it, you'll see I get this preview pane on the left-hand side. But it's simple enough as just hitting this drop-down arrow and saying delete. I don't want it, which it will confirm at that point. And we'll notice it's just gone, which is great. I will keep this image block here. I've pre-produced an image that we will learn how to add here. I'm also going to keep this text block. I do like that kind of title on it, along with that description below it in the smaller font. And I'm also going to keep this button. It's always great to have a very clear call to action. But aside from that, I don't need a lot of these other pieces that have been added here. So again, it's simple enough as just hovering over, hitting that drop down arrow and saying delete and confirming. Delete, delete. So you'll notice these content blocks still exist, and there's no way to actually get rid of these, which sounds like a bummer, but it actually is perfectly fine because they will collapse when you actually send the email. We're jumping ahead a little bit, but if we look at this in preview and test, they're gone. So not necessarily something to worry about in deleting those blocks. We will go ahead and keep this social follow. It's an awesome feature in Marketing Cloud that takes a lot of heavy lifting off your plate. And then we do want to keep this one text block with our unit name, unit mailing address. So very much it makes us compliant with CAN spam. So we do want that information on every single email. But this link text, we can go ahead and get rid of. So let's delete. So to get the image that I've pre-produced, we're going to navigate back to the eCom website. And then from there, we can look at training, this navigation, and then new user training. From here, go ahead and open up the current step of new user training. So while there are in-person training opportunities, you're of course going through the virtual on-demand opportunities. So let's go and look at Marketing Cloud, that recorded training. From here, we'll notice there are some training materials that you can download. So we want to find the See You at the Zoo image. And that's the whole invite that we will be creating. So let's go ahead and click on it. Gorgeous image, we'll open that up. And then let's just right click and say Save Image As. So wherever it's convenient for you, I'm just going to put it in my recent downloads and call it See You at the Zoo. And I'll go ahead and attach today's date just for consistency and save. You can see I've downloaded it to my computer now. So hopping back into Marketing Cloud, pretty intuitive. All you need to do is click on that image block, and this left-hand side will populate. And we just want to replace it. So again, I'll want to click on the folder, the training folder that I want to keep all these assets in today. So by clicking on it now, I can then, either say create content and upload, which it will upload or open my files. So I can do it that way. Or with it on my screen right here, I can just drag and drop it right there. So one last final step to actually upload it and publish. You'll want to hit that button once it's pending up here. So that should go pretty quick. In this left-hand pane, we'll want to make sure to do a couple other things to this image. One, always make sure you have alt text on this image. When it doesn't download, this is what will display. So it should encourage somebody to actually download the images. I will call this See You at the Zoo logo. There are other items that I tend not to necessarily mess with. So one being these image settings below, that you can add a border or play with the image padding, as well as the image alignment. And then towards the base, you'll also notice a link. So if you do want when people to click on this, kind of treating it as a call to action, You can add your URL. So we will do a dummy URL of www.cu.edu/CU at the zoo, because that's where people would go to RSVP. We will want to go ahead and add that title. So I will call it Register for CU at the Zoo. And then this tracking alias, this is very much on the back end. You can imagine that because I'm sending people to this link, I might have that link in this email multiple times. And it might be interesting for me to know which link are people clicking on more frequently. Are they clicking on the See You at the Zoo image to register, or are they clicking on the See You at the Zoo button to register? So I'm going to call this registration link. I'll put a dash in there and call it my image. And hit save. The last piece I will highlight is up here about the dimensions that it will display. So I uploaded this image as 600 pixels wide. That's what this image is. So that's the largest it should ever display, which is very much a best practice. What a bad practice might be is having an image that is twice as wide as this, so 1200 pixels, uploading it, and then forcing it to display as 600. While it might look good in Marketing Cloud, and even if you do a test, it might look good, there are a lot of email clients that will break it. It just doesn't listen. So I would encourage you to upload any images like this no wider than 600 pixels. And if you do want it to take up that entire email, have it scale to fit. With that image piece done, we can go ahead and add in some text here. So it truly is as simple as writing over this. And in today's example, we will recall this, See You at the Zoo. You can also go ahead and type in here. No need to follow along with exactly what I'm doing, but something to the effect of, you and your family are invited to join President Benson at the zoo. So clearly we would want to put a lot more text on here, adding, right, who, what, when, where, why. But I will not drag you through that for the sake of time. Last thing I like to do on any and all text blocks is to force the font. So while we're looking at it right now and it very much looks like Arial, and that's being driven by our template for those global styles, some email clients don't respect it. So it's better to kind of just hard code in that Arial as best as possible. So to do so, I highlight all of the text. And rather than when that happens seeing font here, I want to actually see Arial. So it probably won't look any different to us. It's just going to look a little better for the majority of recipients. So go ahead and save it after that. Continuing to scroll, we can disregard these two content blocks, but let's focus on the social. Simply click into it, and that preview pane on the left-hand side will show up. By default, you'll have these 5 options, but you can, one, rearrange them with these little squares on the left-hand side. You can also completely delete them, say you don't have a Pinterest. Just hit the X on the far right-hand side. If you wish to add other social networks, you can hit this blue Add a Social Network underneath it. So there's where you would get some additional options like Snapchat. You can also control the icon style, whether that's the alignment, how they are laid out, either horizontally or vertical, as well as the style. So are they colored or some of these more muted colors, gray or black? So totally your personal preference there. You can also add text labels. Again, completely your preference. So once you have that look like you want and you've added in your particular Facebook or your social networks, you can hit Done Editing. The last thing we'll want to mess with is the footer. So again, go ahead and select on it. And this is the same sort of text block that we use to create the body of the email. So one thing I often encourage people to do is have this reflect your website. So if I look at the e-com site, I would want any email that I send out to probably mirror what I have here. The one thing I see folks do is, okay, great, let's copy this. Let's go into Marketing Cloud and let's paste it. And this is a big, big no-no. So when I do that, it copied all that formatting, all that rich text that I had on my site, it copied it. And that's really bad for email marketing. We've copied from a website, we've pasted it into this new platform, it's then going to be sent out of our servers and will be received by multiple email clients. And that's just a lot of room for error when you send it through that many different systems. So we need to get this as clean as possible. So to do that, there's some tricks. So one, I'm going to hit undo, just Control Z to undo what I just did. And rather than pasting directly into Marketing Cloud, I like to use Notepad. So it should already be on your computer and it's free. So quite literally just search for Notepad and I'll want to paste it first. And all that does is create plain text. Plain text pastes into Marketing Cloud a lot better than rich text with all that formatting. So now when I have this all highlighted, I can paste. And the last thing I'll want to do, while this does appear to be Arial font, I want to force it that way. And to do so, go ahead and just highlight all your text. And if this font control is coming up as font, we'll just want to change that to Arial. So visually, it probably won't look any different to you. But again, it just helps force that font on anyone who's going to receive it. You can go ahead and say Done Editing. One tip I like to share with people is saving content blocks. So if you think about it, there's some elements here that we might reuse in our other emails, which might be our social follow or our footer, right? That's not going to change, and we want it on every single email. So rather than putting in effort to create it every single time, let's just save it. So to do so, we'll go ahead and click on it again and get that preview pane open in the left-hand side. And we'll just want to hit Save Block. So you could update an existing, but we haven't created this as one yet. So our only option is Create New. And from here, we can go ahead and name this particular block. So I will call it e-com footer, but you should probably name it of your footer. Again, we'll want to make sure the location is where we want. So for today, I will want it in today's training folder. So I can go ahead and move it and just find my training folder for today and hit save. After that, you can add a description if you want, although not required. You can go ahead and save. So if you wanted to put that footer in a future email, you would simply navigate rather than to blocks. We would want to look at content. You can go ahead and search footer in that top search bar, and it should come up, and I can see that ecom footer that we just created. We can see that ecom footer that I just created, and it's as simple as dragging it into your email. So I don't need that for right now, so I will go ahead and delete it. Just wanted to showcase that. But one thing also I noticed here is we didn't link our contact@cu.edu. Wouldn't it be great if that was a hyperlink? So to do so, I'll go ahead and copy that hyperlink, and then using these nice toolbox features, we can link, and this should look pretty familiar to us. So link that URL, and this is actually an email, right? So rather than going to a website, we want it to be an email address. So that address is contact@cu.edu. If you wish to put a subject line in there, you can. I tend not to. You can control that link color. We do want it to be underlined, and the title is Contact Ecom. You can go ahead and say OK. So now that I've made that change, I would want to update my existing saved block, which you can see the update successfully saved in Content Builder. If you wish to add more to your email, you can do so, one, by looking at blocks. So you can drop and drag in a button, and then you will get all those features. You can drop and drag in an image block. So if you're trying to add an image, or if you're trying to add additional text, you can go ahead and just simply drag and drop. And then you'll have your canvas to start working with it. I will go ahead and delete those. A bit more complex, you also have opportunities around adding layouts. So these are a bit more designed and have different columns that you can use, or just combinations of multiple elements to create a layout that I like to leverage. So you could drag an entire layout. Again, I will go ahead and delete those. The final step, very simple, might be adding your subject line and pre-header. So for this subject, we will do "You're invited to see you at the zoo." And this gets me all the time. You do have to hit save in this far right bottom corner in order to get that to stick. Otherwise, it will clear out. And then your pre-header will be pulled in right after your subject line. So I've often seen people use the same subject line as the pre-header, and that's really a waste of space. We don't want to see redundancy there. Instead, I like to think of it as supporting your subject line. So what would your next question be after hearing "You're invited to see you at the zoo"? When is it? So I might say August 2nd is the time to visit the zoo with your family. And again, make sure you hit save. While you're previewing this email, while you're creating it, I also encourage you to look at not only the desktop version, but the mobile version as well. So in this top right corner, we can toggle back and forth and see those two interfaces. Just making sure they look good on both platforms. So assuming your email looks good, you have it in a space that you like, we can move on to the third phase of preview and testing the email. So again, we'll have this preview window open on the right-hand side, and we can see those content blocks disappeared. But now let's send a test to ourselves. So on this left-hand pane, we don't want to mess with subscriber previews and attributes. Instead, we want to go to the second option that looks like a beaker on an envelope. So that's where we do our test send. So it should default to have your email address as recipients, but you can also add other people. So if I want to test it to my Yahoo maybe, I can go ahead and input that and then simply hit enter. You are limited to only 5 email addresses at one time. And then this next part is very important, not only for a test send, but when you send a real email. Who is it coming from? I'll actually hop out of Marketing Cloud to explain this one. Your from information is comprised of a couple of different things. It's your from name, so that very friendly. Are we calling it CU President Bruce and Marcy Benson? Are we calling it President Bruce D. Benson? Are we calling it Bruce? There's a lot of flexibility there. The from email address, however, you have less wiggle room. That's because it needs to be a real email address that people can hit reply on and have a response. So in this case, we're using Office of the President at cu.edu. And the final bit is this footer, or what's called a delivery profile in Marketing Cloud. So this is what drives the footer of every email. So thinking back to canned spam, you might recall we need to give everyone who receives a commercial email the opportunity to opt out. So by using that delivery profile, CU footer for all emails, that is what's driving the footer below that, which allows people to manage their email preferences. So this is very, very important and your key part in remaining compliant with canned spam. On the right-hand side, we have what I will call the naughty list. So if you're ever selecting things that say default, we do not want to send a real email like that. So I understand today your test might come from default. After that, I never want you to send an email with it. Get with your e-com specialist and request that they add this information, which they will do so, and it'll be available for you to select whenever. But very, very important. So hopping back into Marketing Cloud, I am going to go ahead and select my send classification of Bruce and Marcy Benson. Like I said, I know as your first time in here, you might not have an option other than default right now. Request that through your e-com specialist. So while your sender profile might say default, I want to make sure your delivery profile, even for this test today, says CU footer for all emails. I do want to verify that that delivery profile, however, does say CU footer for all emails. Very much a commercial communication, so that's the footer that we should see it for it. And the last part lets you know there will be a subject prefix that you can change if you want, but I typically keep it as test. And then you can just say send test, and that should show up in your inbox pretty quick. So once this is in your inbox, there's a couple things you'll notice as this just being a test send. One, the subject line has test preceding it. But also that pre-header, it didn't actually pull it in. A real send, it will, but for this, it's just going to have those percentage signs around it. A couple of other elements that don't work in this test send include to view this email as a web page, go here. That should be a clickable link, and it won't be until you do a real send. The same goes for this bottom footer that's being driven by that CU footer for all emails. There's a percentage sign around that email address because it's simply a test. So I would encourage you to send a real email to yourself just to get those elements to work. Once your email has been built in Marketing Cloud and tested, you can go ahead and send it. Note that as of November 2019, new users do not have access to send emails until they pass the short verification quiz. If you are a new user, we'd encourage you to watch along with the send email portion of the training so that you can get those basics and pass the required quiz. After that, we'll grant your access to send emails, but I would still highly encourage you sit down with your e-com specialist once they've created your audiences to send your first email together. Now that we've successfully sent a test, we're happy with our work. Let's review how to actually send an email. Next to it, you'll hit that little drop-down arrow and you can say save and send. So we'll notice this is going to take us to a whole other wizard that's sending an email rather than creating them. So we now have 4 steps we need to complete. The first one is selecting our send classification. We'll actually hop out of Marketing Cloud to explain this one. Your from information is comprised of a couple of different things. It's your from name, so that very friendly. Are we calling it CU President Bruce and Marcy Benson? Are we calling it President Bruce D. Benson? Are we calling it Bruce? There's a lot of flexibility there. The from email address, however, you have less wiggle room. That's because it needs to be a real email address that people can hit reply on and have a response. So in this case, we're using Office of the President at cu.edu. And the final bit is this footer, or what's called a delivery profile in Marketing Cloud. So this is what drives the footer of every email. So thinking back to CAN-SPAM, might recall we need to give everyone who receives a commercial email the opportunity to opt out. So by using that delivery profile, CU footer for all emails, that is what's driving the footer below that, which allows people to manage their email preferences. So this is very important and your key part in remaining compliant with CAN-SPAM. On the right-hand side, we have what I will call the naughty list. So if you're ever selecting things that say default, we do not want to send a real email like that. So I understand today your test might come from default. After that, I never want you to send an email with it. Get with your e-com specialist and request that they add this information, which they will do so, and it'll be available for you to select whenever. But for this test, I will send it from President Bruce and Marcy Benson, making sure that delivery profile is CU footer for all emails. Going through this wizard, our next step is selecting our audience. Your audience will be created by your e-com specialist as either a Salesforce report or a Salesforce data extension. It is important to know how your e-com specialist created it. There's some processes involved in one versus the other that you need to be aware of. Put simply, reports allow you to email the primary email address associated with a particular constituent or individual. As an example, I've gone ahead and pulled my email information from my Salesforce contact. So a single contact or constituent in Salesforce might have many email addresses associated to their account. And that's due to multiple affiliations with the university. So when we say a Salesforce report is going to hit the primary email field on the contact, in this case, it would be my Gmail email address. We leverage data extensions when we specifically want to target student and employee populations at their university email address. Continuing with myself as an example, if somebody wanted to communicate with me as a student of the Denver campus, they would want to hit that UCD email field. Similarly, since I'm employed with the system office, if I was getting an employee-related communication, they would want to target my system email field. And so either one of those use cases will be fulfilled by converting a Salesforce report to a Marketing Cloud data extension. Your e-com specialist will set these up for you, but it's your job to make sure you run them before each send and that you're selecting the right ones. For this case, let's assume my e-com specialist has let me know they've created a report for me, and they've also given me the name of it. So I'll want to make sure the Salesforce reports are highlighted here. I can then search in this top area, and once I find the exact name that my e-com specialist provided me, it's as simple as dragging it into the targeted area. After that, you can go ahead and click Next in the top right corner. That will take you to the third phase where we configure delivery. So a couple of options here. As far as the send timing, you can send it immediately, which we will go ahead and do, but you can also schedule it in the future. So maybe those 6 a.m. sends, or you want it to go out in a couple hours. And then hit Next. And now we're on our final stage of reviewing and sending. So truly just reviewing those components that we married together during this send email process. Going through this, we'll want to confirm our target audience is that OA_ongoing_ with our own last name. So my last name being Jones. We'll also want to exclude that OA_unsub_ event invitation. Going down, we'll want to review that delivery information. So we didn't do too much, we will be sending it immediately. But if it was a future send, you would see that date and time there. And then hovering over the from information, I just like to verify it's coming from the right email address and the right person. And if that is all in order, the last step before you hit send, in that top right corner, you might see it's grayed out. We just want to check this box that this information is correct and this email is ready to send. Now hold on to your breath and hit send. With that green bar up across the top and us coming back to our Content Builder overview page, you have successfully set your first email. Now wait a few moments and it should come to your inbox soon. View analytics on emails that you've already sent by navigating to tracking. We can go look at tracking. So once these emails actually go out, how do you look at this information and use it to engage further? So within Email Studio, rather than being in this content area, we're going to go look at tracking, and more specifically, sends, which makes sense. So awesome to see. I've got that if a job is still completing, I'm almost a little impressed with how quickly this one went through. It might not populate here yet, and it's because it's processing. It hasn't completed. But I can see that this one has. I got a job ID. Here's my name. So just some high-level information can be seen here. But further, I can click into it and get some more information. So it is nice and tells you access to some subscriber level data is not available at this time. We are still processing data for this job. So keep that in mind, but it should go away after an hour or so. But we can already see that I'm assuming I'm the one who opened this. So otherwise, this overview is very high-level information, great to share with your bosses and such. Tons of times that I bring this into meetings right after a send and kind of show this chart with very little effort on my end. Something else that might be of a bit of interest to you all, navigate to the second tab being Click Activity. So here we can actually see of the people who clicked in this email, how many clicked on this link. So one person clicked on that link and 2 people clicked on the register button.